Okay, let's dive in. Has you ever found yourself just like wide awake at 2 a.m.? You're staring at the ceiling, mind absolutely racing, even though you feel completely exhausted.
Uh-huh.
Or maybe you technically get those 8 hours, but you wake up and honestly feel like you barely slept. If you're, navigating life past 50, maybe you're nodding along right now.
Yeah.
Maybe even sighing, thinking, well, okay, this is my new normal. It's just part of getting older, right?
That idea that core sleep is just sort of inevitable as we age,
No.
it's really common. But the material we're diving into today, it's a mix, some insights from a semi-retired doctor, some interesting research, personal stories too. It really pushes back on that assumption.
Exactly. So our mission here in this deep dive is to unpack all this material and see if there's maybe a different story.
Hmm.
And the core idea that keeps popping up, it's fascinating. It suggests science is actually backing up some really old wisdom,
Hmm.
pointing to how real whole foods can help your body almost relearn how to find that natural deep rest.
It's not just about food though, right? This material also talks us through some simple habits, the timing of what you eat, and it warns about some surprising saboteurs.
Saboteurs, ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Like something you might already have in your kitchen, you think it's fine, maybe even helpful, but it could actually be making things worse.
Exactly.
Or like finding out how a common fruit could potentially help you fall asleep, was it 35% faster?
It sounds a bit counterintuitive, I know, which is exactly why this is so interesting to look at. We're trying to pull out the really practical nuggets from all this insights that could potentially help your system find its way back to genuinely restorative sleep, maybe without relying on pills.
Okay, so let's start with the why. Why does sleep seem to change so much as we get older? What's actually happening behind that, that infamous 2 a.m. wake-up call?
Well, the material explains there are some real biological shifts happening. They typically start showing up, somewhere around age 50, maybe 60. Your circadian rhythm, that's your internal body clock, right, governs sleep and wake cycles. It just starts to change.
Okay, how? What's actually shifting in that clock?
Well, a big one is your brain starts producing less melatonin. Melatonin's that key hormone, the signal that tells your body, okay, time to wind down, time for sleep.
Right.
Think of it less like an on-off switch, maybe more like a dimmer. And as you age, that dimmer, well, it just doesn't turn the lights down quite as low as it used to.
Okay. So less of the body's own natural sleep signal. Makes sense.
Right. And kind of linked to that, the part of your brain that's sensitive to light and dark cues, the external things that usually keep your clock set right, it becomes less responsive.
Huh.
So your brain isn't getting quite as clear a message about when it's really time for that deep, sustained rest. The signal gets a little fuzzy.
That makes total sense. Like the internal clock is losing a bit of its accuracy.
And there's another really crucial point they highlight, your nervous system. Even when you're technically asleep, it can stay slightly elevated, almost on high alert. One description used is like a smoke alarm that's just constantly chirping really quietly in the background. It never fully switches off. So even if you're in bed for hours, your body isn't truly letting go into deep rest.
That perfectly describes that feeling. Tossing and turning or waking up feeling like you haven't slept even after a full night, that fragmented, shallow sleep.
Exactly, that feeling of waking up, say 2 a.m., just lying there, thoughts buzzing. You feel tired, but also weirdly wired. That's often these underlying shifts playing out. And the material is really clear. This fragmented sleep isn't just annoying, it has real health consequences.
Like what? What does poor sleep really mess with, according to this?
Well, it significantly impacts brain function, things like memory, focus, even mood. The material connects it to things like struggling to find a word mid-sentence or feeling suddenly irritable over small things.
Yeah.
It also weakens your immune system. You might find you catch colds more easily, or it takes longer to get over things when you do get sick.
I think I remember reading something about cell repair as well.
Yes, absolutely critical. Your body does essential repair work during deep sleep. Without enough of it, the material suggests the aging process itself can actually speed up. You can literally feel older because your cells aren't getting that crucial downtime.
Wow. That's pretty significant. And it sounds like if someone's dealing with these deeper age-related changes, just doing the standard stuff, cool, dark room, avoiding screens right before bed, that might not be enough on its own.
The material suggests those are still good habits, definitely keep them, but they might not give the specific kind of support your body needs now, which, brings us to the really interesting core idea here.
If food is way more than just fuel.
Precisely. The material makes a strong case that real whole foods are incredibly powerful, not just calories. They send specific signals to your brain, help regulate hormones, stabilize really crucial functions, especially blood sugar. Keeping that steady overnight can be absolutely key to stopping those middle-of-the-night wake-ups.
Right, it's like using food to give your body the signals it might be missing as you get older. Signals like magnesium, melatonin, tryptophan, maybe even those healthy omega-3 fats.
Exactly. And the material pulls out 7 specific foods it identifies as being particularly good at providing these signals and this kind of support. So should we get into those?
Okay, yeah, let's see what's on this list. Food is a sleep aid. What's number 1?
First up, bananas. They get called nature's muscle relaxant.
Muscle relaxant. Huh. Like, could they actually help with restless legs or that kind of jittery feeling some people get?
Exactly that. The material actually mentions anecdotes about bananas helping with that ants in your legs feeling. It links back to them being rich in potassium and magnesium, 2 minerals really well known for relaxing muscles and calming the nervous system.
Okay, that makes sense. Magnesium always comes up for relaxation.
And bananas also have vitamin B6 and tryptophan. Remember we said the brain makes less melatonin? Well, these nutrients are like the building blocks, the precursors your body uses to make serotonin, which then turns into melatonin. So it's directly feeding the system that makes your own natural sleep hormone.
Got it. So it's addressing that age-related melatonin dip with the actual raw materials. How does the material suggest using them? Eating them when?
The suggestion is eating one about an hour before bed. Just plain is fine, or maybe mashed into a little oatmeal or even blended into some warm oat milk.
Interesting. Makes you think, doesn't it? Could swapping out that, I don't know, late-night cookie for a simple banana actually make a difference?
It's all about sending the right signals. Biologically, that's the emphasis. Okay, moving on. The next food is almonds, described as tiny but mighty sleep helpers.
Almonds. Okay, another one that seems pretty simple every day. What's their sleep superpower?
Again, magnesium plays a big role calming the nerves. Vitamin E gets a mention too for reducing inflammation. But a really significant benefit pointed out is how they can help lower cortisol, that's the stress hormone.
Ah, right.
So that could potentially help cut off those late-night worry loops that keep your mind buzzing.
Okay, so helping quiet the racing mind. That connects back to that slightly alert nervous system thing we talked about.
Exactly. And because they've got healthy fats and some protein, they help keep your blood sugar stable all night long. That can prevent those disruptive 2 a.m. wake-ups where you suddenly feel hungry because your blood sugar crashed.
Yeah, that 2 a.m. hunger pang.
Yeah.
Definitely a thing for some people. So almonds could tackle that specific problem. Any tips on how to eat them?
Yes, actually, there's a pro tip included. Soak about 8 to 10 almonds in water in the morning. Then at night, peel off the skins and eat them. It apparently makes them much easier to digest.
Oh, interesting.
Which is important, right? Because digestion slows down with age, and the last thing you want is gas or bloating waking you up.
Soaking makes sense for digestion.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 simple but powerful ones. What's number 3?
Tart cherries. These get called sweet little sleep bombs.
Sweet little sleep bombs. I like that.
The material highlights that they naturally contain melatonin. And crucially, it's in a form that's bioavailable, meaning your body can actually absorb and use it easily.
Wow. Okay, so a direct source of the sleep hormone itself, easy to use.
Yes, directly helping with that age-related melatonin dip. Plus, they're loaded with anthocyanins. Basically, those are powerful antioxidants. They're what give berries their deep red color, and they help reduce inflammation, including inflammation in the brain, which can mess with sleep.
Okay, so melatonin and brain anti-inflammatories. There's an anecdote in there, right? About someone named Linda, 72, whose sleep apparently got way better after eating frozen tart cherries.
Yes, that story really drives the point home. And the material is very specific. Use frozen tart cherries. It warns pretty strongly against dried ones because the sugar content is usually really high, which can backfire for sleep.
Right, sugar spiked.
Exactly. So a small bowl of the frozen ones, maybe an hour before bed, is the suggestion.
It does make you wonder, can something that simple and naturally sweet actually help you sleep better?
The case presented is definitely persuasive. Now, number 4 is one that might make you raise an eyebrow, kiwi. It's called the sleep fruit we didn't see coming.
Kiwi. Okay, that is unexpected for sleep. What's the logic there?
Well, this is where the material brings in some interesting research, particularly studies from New Zealand. Apparently, they showed that eating 2 kiwis about an hour before bed helped people fall asleep significantly faster, like 35% faster and sleep longer too.
Ooh, 35% faster. That sounds like a lot. Does the material give any more detail on those studies, like how many people, or was it consistent?
It doesn't dive super deep into the study methodology, like sample sizes. It focuses more on the reported outcome. But it does explain why kiwi might work. They're packed with serotonin precursors, kind of like bananas, plus antioxidants like vitamin C and E, and they also help reduce inflammation, so multiple potential pathways.
Okay, so the potential reasons are there, even if we don't have all the study details here. And can you eat the fuzzy skin? Some people do, right?
Yep, the material mentions you can just wash and scrub off the fuzz. And it even suggests a specific combo. Try half a banana plus 1 kiwi about an hour before bed. Describes it like having dessert, but it works like medicine.
That is genuinely surprising. It really challenges that idea that any fruit before bed is a bad idea. Makes you think, would you try kiwi if you keep waking up every couple of hours? Could this simple fruit actually work better than reaching for a pill?
It certainly presents an interesting possibility based on the research mentioned. Okay, number 5. This one's probably the most unexpected of the lot. Sauerkraut.
Sauerkraut. Okay, now you really have my attention. What on earth could sauerkraut have to do with sleep?
This one taps into that whole gut-brain connection, the idea that your digestive health directly impacts your brain health and therefore your sleep. Sauerkraut, being fermented, is loaded with probiotics, good bacteria for your gut.
Right, the gut microbiome link.
Exactly. Good digestion, healthy gut. Plus, it's noted as having vitamin C, which can help lower cortisol.
Okay, gut health affecting sleep.
Yeah.
That's becoming more accepted, even if sauerkraut seems like a strange way to get there.
It does seem odd at first, but, and this is really important, this part of the material comes with some major caveats. Big warnings.
Uh-oh, like what?
Definitely do not mix it with red meat or wine in the same meal if you're trying this for sleep. And crucially, start with a tiny amount, like just 1 or 2 tablespoons of raw, unpasteurized sauerkraut in the evening.
Why such specific warnings? And only a tiny bit.
Because the material explains, for some people who are sensitive, the fermentation process creates histamines. Too much sauerkraut, or combining it with other high histamine things, can trigger a histamine reaction. Not exactly an allergy, but it can cause flushing, itching, maybe a headache. Basically, you feel uncomfortable and stimulated. Definitely not sleepy.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's critical information. I remember the story in there about someone learning that the hard way ate sauerkraut with steak and was up all night feeling just weird and wired.
Yes, that anecdote is a pertinent warning. The advice is really approach with caution. Maybe try a tiny bit on its own first. It definitely makes you think about that gut-brain link and maybe trying fermented foods, but you have to be really mindful of potential sensitivities.
Adds a layer of complexity, for sure. But the potential connection is intriguing. Okay, what's next?
Next up is overnight oats. The idea is breakfast for better sleep, but you eat them at night.
Oats at night, like a bedtime snack.
Exactly. The main benefit highlighted here is the complex carbs. They break down slowly, which is fantastic for keeping your blood sugar stable all night long.
Ah,
That helps prevent those sudden blood sugar dips that can jolt you awake hungry or feeling shaky around 3 a.m.
okay, stabilizing blood sugar. That tackles another really common reason for waking up. Anything else in oats?
Yeah, they're also noted as being rich in zinc and B vitamins, which are nutrients the brain uses to help make melatonin.
Okay, so stable fuel and some melatonin support. How does the material suggest preparing them for nighttime?
A really simple prep. Maybe half a cup of rolled oats soaked with some warm oat milk, perhaps a sprinkle of cinnamon, maybe some chopped walnuts. It's described as not just beneficial, but also really comforting, gently filling, and just relaxing before bed.
That actually does sound cozy and calming.
Yeah.
Makes you ask yourself, are those low blood sugar wake-ups maybe an issue for you? Could something as simple as oats help?
It's definitely presented as a solid option based on how those nutrients work. And that leads us nicely to the 7th and final item. It's more of a classic combo. Chamomile tea paired with walnuts.
Ah, the old standby, chamomile tea for sleep.
Yep, a classic for good reason. But the material gives specific instructions on how to make it actually effective. See, chamomile has this compound, apigenin. It binds to certain receptors in your brain. Think of them like tiny docking stations that help reduce anxiety and promote calm.
So there's actual science behind the calming effect. What are the brewing instructions? How to make it properly?
Right, don't just dump the bag in boiling water for a minute. Let the water cool just a bit, maybe to around 175 Fahrenheit, basically, when it stops bubbling vigorously. Then, and this is key, steep it covered for a full 10 minutes, not just 2 or 3.
10 minutes covered. Okay.
That longer covered steep pulls out way more of that beneficial apigenin and other good stuff.
Gotcha. Proper brewing makes a difference. And why pair it with walnuts specifically?
Walnuts get the spotlight because they provide omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. The material points out these healthy fats are essential building blocks your brain needs to actually produce melatonin.
Ah, okay.
So you get the calming effect from the properly brewed tea, plus the raw materials for melatonin from the walnuts.
Sipping strong, warm tea, nibbling a few walnuts. The material says it can feel like your brain just sighs in relief. It really makes you ask, are you making your chamomile tea strong enough?
That's
And
right.
have you thought about pairing it with those brain-friendly fats?
So yeah, those 7 foods offer a whole toolkit, really, each potentially targeting different reasons for sleep trouble, muscle tension, racing mind, blood sugar dips, hormone production, all based on the material we've looked at.
That's a fascinating list of potential kitchen allies. But you mentioned earlier a silent sleep saboteur, something that seems harmless but could be working against us. What's that?
According to this material, the surprising culprit can be decaf coffee, especially for people over, say, 60.
Decaf? Seriously?
That
Is
is-
that the whole point? No caffeine?
Yeah, that's what we all think, right? But the material clarifies. Decaf is not caffeine-free. It still has caffeine, usually somewhere between 3% and maybe 10% of the original amount.
Oh.
And for sensitive systems, especially as your metabolism naturally slows down with age, that little bit can often be enough to mess with your sleep quality and block the production of that precious melatonin your body is making.
Wow. So it's not zero caffeine, and that little bit is actually enough to be disruptive for some people.
Exactly. And there's another layer the material points to, the decaffeination process itself. Some methods use chemical solvents, things like methylene chloride or ethyl acetate. Now, regulators deem the trace amounts left as safe generally, but the material suggests that for older adults, maybe with slower metabolic clearance, maybe more sensitive nervous systems, even those tiny trace amounts could subtly interfere with neurotransmitters, those chemical messengers in your brain controlling mood, alertness, sleep.
Chemicals affecting brain messengers, even in tiny amounts. That adds kind of a concerning angle.
It's a point the material definitely raises. And beyond the physical stuff, there's also a psychological piece. Your brain forms strong associations, right? The smell, the taste, the whole ritual of coffee, even decaf, is deeply linked with waking up, getting alert, being productive. That ingrained habit, that association, can actually signal your brain to stay awake, regardless of the caffeine level.
Wow. So it could be a physical effect from leftover stuff and a psychological trigger from the habit itself. That's like a triple whammy.
That's a good way to put it. The material shares this really striking anecdote about a 70-year-old guy, Bill. He thought he was doing everything right, switched to decaf after dinner, but still had that racing mind, couldn't unwind.
Yeah.
It was only when he cut out all coffee, including the decaf after 3 p.m., that his sleep dramatically improved. He apparently described it like flipping a switch after struggling for years.
That story really makes you think, makes you question if that evening decaf, the one you have maybe just for comfort or habit, could actually be quietly wrecking your sleep efforts.
The material definitely prompts you to ask yourself, do you drink decaf in the evening? And have you ever stopped to consider it might be a hidden reason you're waking up?
So, if decaf might be out, what are some better, actually calming swaps for an evening drink according to this?
Well, the material suggests things like that properly steeped chamomile tea we talked about, or warm almond or oat milk, maybe with a little cinnamon. Lemon balm infusion is another gentle option, or even just warm water with a slice of fresh ginger.
Good alternatives that send the right signals. The material really lays down a clear challenge here, doesn't it? Try skipping the evening decaf for just 1 week. See what happens. Makes you think about what's more important, that fleeting comfort now, or feeling genuinely rested and energized tomorrow.
It definitely forces a valuable shift in perspective. And speaking of shifts, the material really hammers home that it's not just what you eat or drink, but also how and when you consume it for sleep benefits.
Right, because that story about someone mixing too many sleep foods and just feeling bloated really highlighted that timing and simplicity matter.
Exactly. The material is quite clear. Timing is crucial. The sweet spot they recommend for having these sleep-supportive foods or drinks is generally about 1 to 2 hours before you actually plan to go to bed.
Okay, why that specific? What happens if you eat too late or too early?
Well, if you eat too close to bedtime, your body's still busy digesting. That can interfere with falling asleep, staying asleep, maybe lead to heartburn, or even just needing bathroom trips.
Excess.
But eating too early can also be a problem. If your last bite was hours ago, your blood sugar might dip in the middle of the night, and boom, you wake up feeling hungry or shaky around 3 a.m.
So it's finding that balance enough fuel to last the night, but not making your digestion work overtime right when you want to rest.
Precisely. The material suggests really paying attention to your own body's timing, being willing to experiment a little. Even shifting your snack time by just 30 minutes could potentially make a difference. It really asks you to consider, are you eating too close to bed or maybe too early?
And the simplicity part, not trying to pile all 7 foods into one bedtime snack.
Yes, definitely. Especially since digestion can naturally slow down a bit as we age. Trying to process a whole mix of different fibers, fats, sugars all at once right before bed can just overwhelm your system,
Right.
leading to gas, bloating, indigestion, none of which helps sleep. So the advice is, keep it simple for any single pre-sleep snack. Focus on just 1 or 2 things at a time. You can always rotate through the different foods on different nights.
Okay, so maybe one night it's a banana, the next night kiwi and almonds, maybe some oats another night, not some kind of sleep super smoothie with everything thrown in.
Exactly. The material basically asks, have you tried just focusing on one sleep-friendly food at night and seeing how your body feels?
And then finally, there's the whole bedtime routine aspect. The material frames sleep less like a switch you just flip and more like a ritual you create.
Yeah, this point comes across really strongly. Your body loves patterns, predictability. Consistently signaling that it's time to wind down helps prepare both your mind and your body for rest. Some suggested parts of a routine. Dimming the lights throughout your home, maybe around 8 p.m.
Making a conscious effort to avoid bright screens, phone, TV after a certain point, say 9 p.m., because that blue light really messes with melatonin. Maybe playing soft music or nature sounds, slowly sipping a warm, calming drink, perhaps reading some light fiction, nothing too intense.
All things designed to signal. The day's done, time to shift gears, prepare for rest, not stimulate the brain with bright lights or stressful news or anything like that.
It's about creating an environment, a sequence, that basically tells your nervous system, hey, it's okay, you can relax now. And the material stresses that consistency with this ritual, even if it's not perfect every single night, is really key to helping your body relearn how to get ready for deeper sleep.
Okay, so pulling everything together from this material we've explored.
Yeah.
The big picture seems to be that sleep problems popping up after 50 or 60, they aren't necessarily this irreversible decline. Maybe they're more like a signal that your body just needs specific kinds of support it didn't need as much when you were younger. Yes, exactly. And the material points us toward where that support might come from. Specific, real foods like bananas, almonds, those tart cherries, kiwi, sauerkraut, carefully, overnight oats, chamomile, walnuts.
Right.
These foods can provide the nutrients and signals magnesium, melatonin precursors, stable blood sugar, anti-inflammatories that might be running low or that your body isn't using as effectively anymore.
And just as important as adding the good stuff is maybe identifying and removing those saboteurs like that evening decaf coffee the material flags as potentially undermining sleep.
Absolutely. Combine that with paying attention to the timing of when you eat in the evening and establishing that simple, consistent bedtime routine, signaling to your body it's safe to shift into rest mode.
There's a really powerful closing thought in the material. Sleep isn't just about closing your eyes. It's about telling your body, you are safe now, you can rest.
It really reframes it beautifully, doesn't it? Not as this battle you have to win, but as a state of safety and trust you can gently guide your body back towards.
And that really leaves us with this final thought for you, the listener, to mull over. What if the tools your body needs to remember how to sleep deeply again? What if they're already accessible, maybe sitting right there in your kitchen or pantry?
It's a powerful idea, the possibility that this material encourages us to explore.
So maybe consider trying just one thing from this deep dive tonight. Perhaps pick one calming food to try, maybe one quiet activity before bed. Dedicate just 1 hour to creating a bit of peace.
And just notice. Notice how it feels, how you feel tomorrow morning.
Maybe reflect on which suggestion really resonated with you, or which one feels like something you might actually try first. Or perhaps think about your own experiences. Have any of these ideas worked or not worked for you already?